Cynthia Bonesky is a well-known artist and art educator. Like Canadian painter Mary Pratt, Cynthia's creativity did not fully develop until after her children were grown and art became her full focus. We visited her at her well-designed and light-filled studio overlooking Sprout Lake.
It's definitely a mucker-abouter. I think I've always had that interest. Just as a kid, I remember it was one of my favorite things to get out the crayons or to sit in a kitchen table with a pencil and draw something. And then by the time I was finished high school, go to university and so on, you kind of don't have time. It wasn't until my youngest daughter left home and I just suddenly had some time on my hands and I just thought, I could paint, yay! Actually, I have to say that one of the impetus was entering something in the fall fair and got a ribbon and it sold. My God, I was so excited because I wasn't expecting it at all. And it was honestly almost the first thing I'd done. And it was such a rush that somebody actually liked it enough to pay money for it. It was like, oh my God, this is great. And it was really encouraging. Now, I didn't sell anything else for quite a long time after that, but at least it was the start.
With time on her hands and the momentum generated by the fall fair, Cynthia began making art.
I mean, you sell your first piece and then you realize that you can speak to somebody else and that they're willing to actually put out some money to have this piece in their house. And then at that point you think, okay, I'm an artist, this is great. I actually started with watercolor. And that I still actually love doing watercolor. It's a medium I come back to quite often. I think it was just an extension, like as a kid you get those little paint boxes with the little round paint things in, so that was kind of where I started. And so as a kid, so when I came back into it, that was a comfort level for me, like just watercolor, you just mix up the paint. And so I did that for quite a number of years actually, and then I went from there to acrylic. And I started using acrylic in a watercolory kind of way, and then gradually started using it more in an oil painting kind of way. Right now it's oil paint. I really love oil paint because it's like putting butter on your toast. It's great. It has that consistency and the colors are brilliant. And one of the things I love about it is that it doesn't dry right away. So you have blending time. So you can put something in and put another one in and then go back in and blend the edges and make it all nice.
Cynthia Bonesky is well known in the Alberni Valley as an art teacher and has been always very generous about sharing her creative skills and knowledge. She was fundamental in the evolution of the Wednesday Painters. The group has been growing over the years, providing encouragement and mentorship to many emerging Valley artists.
Yeah, it just, one of those things just kind of grew, and it's been a really good thing actually. It's really a great group because you go, everybody gets together and everybody takes a turn kind of cruising around the room to see what everybody's doing, and you make some comment on the work and then somebody makes a comment on your work, and it's very helpful, very inspiring because you sort of realize the problems that you're struggling with. You're not alone, somebody else has the same sort of problems and you can kind of give each other advice. And also, painting is a very solitary, lonely kind of thing. You're just sitting here in front of your canvas, you know, and painting once in a while with some friends, it's just social, you know, it's kind of nice.
Cynthia is always creating. She has described herself as a mucker-abouter. Her creativity has many expressions and she's constantly experimenting with media.
It might almost be a handicap because I know there's certain really good artists that just really focus in on one medium. They might be watercolor or oil or something, and they really just do that and get very good at it. And I'm flitting around like a magpie, this and this and this. But in a way it's fun too, because when you get bogged down doing one particular thing, you can stop and move on to something else. And sometimes after you finish doing that, you can go back to your first project and, oh, now, you know, and then you've had some kind of an insight, and then you can carry on with that, and it improves. So I think they feed each other.
We asked Cynthia to describe her style and to talk a bit about the method she uses as she approaches her work.
I have to say I'm pretty literal. Like, there's lots of people who go off on really creative tangents, and they can just pull things out of the air and make something, but I have to see something. I do work from life, but I also work from photographs, and if I don't have something in front of me to see, then nothing. I can't. Like I don't just make things up. I've got a couple of things on the wall there that are collage oriented, and I think that's one way. Like, I never consider them serious art pieces, like I've never offered that stuff for sale, but I think it's another way of, it's more playing, like you can just mess around with textures and colors and layer things, and again, maybe a refreshing thing, like you can muck around with this in a non-pressured, not for sale kind of way.
The creative play that Cynthia described is balanced by her focus on learning the fundamentals that link hand and eye. For many years, she has dedicated herself to the practice of life drawing.
It's the biggest challenge, and it is so interesting. I mean, I always felt that if you could draw a face or draw a figure, you could pretty much draw anything, because it's the one thing you have to get exactly accurate. Like, anybody can look at it and know, oh, well, you know, that's, because everybody knows what a human body looks like. And it's also so challenging to try and get it right.
Cynthia has a great eye and a formal knowledge of media and method, but the popularity of her work may be based in its inherent element of storytelling, much like the artist who inspires her.
Oh, yes, yes. Norman Rockwell is one of my absolute heroes. He can tell a story like nobody's business. And it is absolutely amazing, you know, a novel on one frame. There's events happening here that have some significance. It's not an easy thing to achieve, certainly, and I've failed way oftener than I've succeeded, but if you do get it, it's wonderful.
Cynthia Bonesky has 2 large works on display at Port Alberni's Eco Centre pool. They recreate her life on the lake, children jumping into the water from a dock, and a casual grouping of colorful deck chairs. These are images that resonate because they are so much a part of our Canadian summer.
There's nothing more My Canada to me than that particular image. It's funny because the one image, the deck chair one, was just painfully set up. We have all those deck chairs down there, and I set it up with, there's 6 of them, and I alternated the colors and put this towel over here and did it in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and you know, I must have, I don't know, 100 photos that I took at different times of the day in order to get that one image. And then the one of the kids jumping in the lake was one of those, oh look, the kids, and snap, and I just got that photo like right then. Yeah, and it was just a fortuitous circumstance. So you never know what's going to happen when you lift your camera. I just looked over, and this girl was just sitting there, and the light was hitting her face, and it was just this magic moment. I carry my camera everywhere, so I just lifted the camera up and snapped it. It will be a painting at some point. I still have so many paintings and projects that I want to do, like this photo that I mentioned to you. I just can't wait to get going on that. Plus, I've got a backlog of other projects. I've got paintings hanging around here in all sorts of states of not finished that need to get at.
It's always interesting to learn which tool each artist finds indispensable. Cynthia's response is a telling reference to her love of detail and her self-deprecating humor.
Oh yeah, tiny brushes, tiny brushes, and it's so painful because you buy the tiny brush, and I mean, you know, it's ridiculous. I always make jokes about myself of my one-haired brush, and so I'll buy a little tiny brush and it works for a little while, and then the next time I go to use it, it's all splayed out at the end. Then I've got to go buy another tiny little brush. So I've probably got like 100 tiny little brushes.
Cynthia spends a great deal of time in her studio, and in the summer, her lovely garden beckons. But she always makes time to teach, mentor, and encourage others to experience making art.
I think it is really important. I think there's a lot of people that have abilities and for one reason or another don't get a chance. And so I think it is really important to help people to realize, first of all, they have some ability, and then to create an atmosphere where they can develop it and feel that it's important in their life. It's another way to express yourself, and you probably express parts of yourself doing that you don't express in any other way, so that makes it really important. Like my dad always said, at the end of the day, you have to be able to give a good account of your day. You don't want to feel like you've wasted your time.